With the 2020 NBA championship now his, LeBron has now won 4 NBA titles, and in each one of those, he was the finals MVP. But out of the 4, which was his greatest? Where did he perform the best and exceed expectations? Which was his best final series and playoff run? I'll be going over that in today's video. Before we start, if you're new here and enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe for more NBA content like this. I'm trying to hit 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so all support would be greatly appreciated. Quick disclaimer, this is obviously all my opinion based off of what I've seen, so please keep that in mind while watching, and if you disagree, comment your rankings below of LeBron's championship runs. Anyway, with that all being said, let's get right into this. Before we actually get into this, here is the basic criteria I will be basing my rankings off. The first point is how impressive the playoff run and championship was in my eyes. The second one is how difficult the run was, taking into consideration the teams LeBron had to play, etc. And the third and final checkpoint is based off of how good LeBron was in the final series, so his stats, clutch moments, etc. I'll try to go a bit deeper than that obviously, but those are just the general areas I want to focus on when considering how great his championships were. Hopefully that all makes sense to you guys, but now we can get right into this top 4. Number 4, 2020. At number 4, I'm going to have to go with this season, 2020. It is a close call between this one and the next one, and I think where you rank those two really depend on how much you value the entire playoff run or just the final series. Though the 2020 championship was incredibly tough due to the whole bubble environment and all the global situations going on, it just really didn't have those standout moments that made you feel like this was an all-time great playoff run. Nor does it make you feel as if this is one of LeBron's best final runs. In terms of impressiveness, again, it is impressive because of the situation all the NBA teams were in, playing in a neutral environment with no fans and not being able to go home or anything. But the teams the Lakers played weren't necessarily great. Obviously, going into those series, the mainstream media hyped it up as if these teams, like the Blazers and Rockets, could do some damage to the superstar Lakers, but I feel like they were just trying to gas up a series that otherwise seemed pretty one-sided, at least to me. I never really thought a team like the Rockets or Nuggets stood a chance against LA and their formidable duo, so I think the competition LA faced got overhyped. This has led people to say that this was an easy run, when it really wasn't. This is another video in itself, but I don't get why we need to bring down a team's accomplishments when we could just say how great the team was, because let's be real here, the Lakers were just ridiculously good these playoffs. As for how good LeBron was this run, he was phenomenal, but it was actually hard to tell who would take the finals MVP until the last 3 games or so, where LeBron took over completely. Throughout the first 3 rounds, I think I'd give the edge to Anthony Davis being the better and more impactful player than LeBron, and especially in games 1 and 2. Anthony Davis was killing it and was making a real case for the finals MVP. Then James stepped up and took over after a disappointing game 3 and went to battle with Jimmy Butler, which was by far one of the most entertaining one-on-one finals battles I've seen in a long time. LeBron finished this series averaging a near 30-point triple-double, and had the Lakers won Game 5, he would have had arguably the greatest closeout performance of all time, dropping 40 points on insane efficiency. I think he only missed like 5 shots. Butler said no to that finish though, and the Lakers would have to finish it off in Game 6, rather than ending it in Game 5. So I think that does hurt the 2020 championship's case a bit. Overall, due to the tough circumstances they were in, the 2020 championship will go down as an incredibly special one, which is why I nearly put it as the 3rd best ring LeBron has earned. However, due to a lack of special moments and the biggest potential one being ruined by Jimmy Butler, I have to place this one at number 4. Not to say this championship is bad at all, it is still elite and is a lot better than, say, the Warriors title run in 2018. But compared to other ones LeBron has won, it is definitely not the best. Number 3, 2012. In number 3, I have LeBron's first ever title, 2012. The Miami Heat would beat the Thunder in 5 games this season, and to be quite frank, it wasn't the most exciting final series. LeBron was dominant as per usual in these final series, averaging 28, 10 and 7, and though many of the games were close and exciting, it was never in doubt that Miami would win that series. What was so special about this championship run though for LeBron was the lead up for it, as he had many elite moments that began to solidify him as an all-time great player. Across this playoff run, LeBron averaged 30 a game, but on 2 particular occasions he dropped 40. One was in Game 4 against Indiana in a critical victory that saw Miami tie up the series and save themselves from a 3-1 deficit. And the other was perhaps the greatest game of LeBron's career, Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Heat were down 3-2 against the Celtics, and a loss would cause a huge hit on LeBron's legacy. The Heat would have fallen short 2 years in a row, and the super team that was created would be one of the biggest disappointments in NBA history. There was a lot on the line, and LeBron responded amazingly. He dropped 45 points and took over as the Heat smoked the Celtics, forcing a Game 7 of which they won, and it got LeBron in his second straight finals in 2 seasons. Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals defined this elite run from LeBron, and is arguably the greatest game of his career, which is why this run is so special. However, since it didn't occur in the finals, I am going to rank the overall championship a bit lower. This run was fairly impressive too. The Heat beat a Knicks team led by arguably the league's best scorer at the time in Carmelo Anthony, and got past a young Pacers team on the come-up who weren't a bad side at all. Though Boston pushed them to 7 games, which was a lot longer of a series than anticipated, it definitely gave this run of LeBron's a lot of hype, as he finally got past a team that gave him so many troubles early on in his career. He and the Heat looked down and out many times during this run, yet came through when it mattered most, and it's why this championship is so great in many fans' eyes. Finally, I want to focus on the difficulty of this run for LeBron and the Heat. From my point of view, it was fairly difficult. They were favourites to come out of the East and were made to work for it by an aging Boston team. However, the most difficult thing on LeBron during these finals was the pressure to win a championship. At the time, LeBron was under enormous scrutiny for his lackluster finals against the Dallas Mavericks, where he got locked down. It was championship or bust for LeBron in this season, and as I showed, LeBron was tested with his legacy on the line, and he responded amazingly. In the finals, he was great and closed out many of the close games that series. He stepped up big time when the Celtics nearly toppled over him again. That is what makes this championship so special in my opinion. Not only was the lead up to it insane, but the fact he got to shut up his millions of critics by being simply dominant was elite, and it's a playoff run most fans will never forget. This 2012 chip really established LeBron to many as someone who was going to be an all-time great player, and it's why I have to place it over 2020 and put it in at number 3. Number 2, 2013. 2013 was a fantastic year for LeBron James and the Miami Heat. They of course won the championship in 7 insane games, making it one of the best final series of all time. But LeBron also claimed his 4th MVP and 2nd in 2 years. LeBron was superb in these finals, averaging 25, 10 and 7 for the series, but there were some criticisms over his late game performances, which I will rebut in a bit. Before we do get to that though, how impressive and difficult was this run for LeBron and the Heat? In the first round, the Heat played the Bucks and walked through them in a sweep. The Bucks were a solid team all season, but were obviously no match for the star-studded Miami squad. The Heat would then play the weakened Bulls, as their star Derrick Rose was out for the entire season with an injury, so Miami ran past them as well in just 5 games. The Heat would then face the rising Indiana Pacers team with Paul George and had an intense series, going the distance to 7 games. LeBron was outstanding for the most part this series, leading the Heat in points in each of the 7 games, as well as having an all-time battle with Paul George, who proved to everyone he was a star of the future. Though Indiana managed to force a Game 7, LeBron does not lose those, and the Miami Heat got into another NBA Finals. For me, the run to the finals wasn't necessarily difficult or insanely impressive. They beat a very average Bucks team, got past a depleted Bulls squad, and were tested against Indiana, who, though were a good team, aren't as great as a team as the Spurs were in this season. However, unlike 2012, the reason why this championship is so great for LeBron was because of the finals themselves. To begin the series, the Spurs paid a lot of attention to LeBron and heavily restricted his impact on the game, which caused Miami to fall behind early on. They'd go down 3 games to 2, and LeBron had a lot to prove with the series on the line in Game 6. LeBron heavily struggled to start the game, going 3 for 12 in the first 3 quarters, but would turn it on in the 4th, scoring another 8 field goals and getting a lot of the Heat's clutch buckets down the stretch. As I'll talk more about in a second, a lot of people forget the exceptional and game-changing 4th quarter LeBron had in this game, and in particular, his elite overtime that sealed the win for Miami, and their eventual championship, as they went in to Game 7 with all the momentum. There is of course a lot of controversy with this Game 6 for LeBron. People say LeBron was saved by Ray Allen and partially Chris Bosh too, as LeBron missed the game-tying 3 but was lucked out by Bosh's clutch offensive rebound and Allen's forever iconic corner shot. This would send the game to overtime and the Heat would end up winning that, forcing Game 7 in which they would also win, securing them back-to-back titles. Everyone remembers the Ray Allen 3, but barely anyone talks about how LeBron put Miami on his back and led them back into the game, scoring almost all the points for the Heat down the stretch. That is just ridiculous, but since he missed 1 shot late and another teammate of his knocked it down, it looks bad on his resume, when really it shouldn't at all, because he had an elite performance, well at least when it mattered the most. This, in my mind, is probably close to being his best title run, but there's obvious reasons why I've put it second. This championship was on a completely different level to 2020 and 2012, and it's why I have it quite easily in second today. Number 1, 2016. It was obvious what was going to go number 1. In the 2016 NBA Finals, LeBron not only had his greatest individual finals series, but it also might be the greatest title in sports history. As we all know, the Cleveland Cavaliers fell behind 3 games to 1 to the Golden State Warriors, a team destined to win the championship after breaking the regular season wins record with 73. LeBron would not give in though, as he turned around the series on its head and took the Cavs to an insane finals win. LeBron was absolutely ridiculous on this finals run. On the way to the finals, he was averaging around 24.5 a night, shooting ridiculously well, like it's crazy. He had only 3 games before the finals where he shot under 50% from the field. In this time, he did only have 1 30-point game, but it occurred in the most important game of that season for him up until that point, closing out the Raptors in Game 6 with a near 33-point triple-double. However, we all know LeBron made his mark in the finals. LeBron averaged a near triple-double in the 2016 finals with 29 points, 9 assists, and 11 rebounds per game. And he also averaged 2.5 steals and 2.5 blocks per game. That is just insane. LeBron did struggle in the opening 2 games of the series, where the Warriors were dominant, shooting below average and scoring barely 20 in both games. But LeBron really turned it on after Game 4. In the last 3 games of this famed series, LeBron would drop a 41-point triple-double in Game 5, another 41-point output in Game 6, and finished the series off with a clinical Game 7, where he scored 27 and iced the game with a cold-blooded free throw. What makes this series stick out even further for LeBron was the classic moments that will live on forever. Michael Jordan has the shots, and LeBron now has the block. The block by James call from Mike Breen is now one of the most famous sports calls of all time, and is instantly associated with this amazing run by LeBron. Words cannot describe how huge and simply perfect that moment was for Cleveland and James. It really defined that entire series. The Warriors looked ahead. They looked primed to be back-to-back champs. However, LeBron hauled Cleveland back into the series and saved them from defeat with an out-of-nowhere run. And that is what the block represents, a completion of the comeback. Obviously, this is LeBron's greatest title run. He did the impossible, coming back 3-1 in a final series. So obviously, this is probably LeBron's most difficult championship, and it is by far his most impressive. Many believe, including LeBron himself, that with this historic championship, he is the greatest of all time. I'm not here to discuss that today, but it certainly is the biggest part of LeBron's career resume. I won't go on for too much longer. We all know the magnitude of this finals win by LeBron and what this title meant for his legacy, his time in Cleveland, and even for the NBA in general. He truly created sports history. There is no question about it. The 2016 championship is LeBron's greatest title of his career, and is perhaps the best championship in the history of the sport. And that will conclude the video. What do you guys think of this? Do you agree with my rankings? What is LeBron's greatest championship in your opinion? Be sure to let me know your personal rankings of LeBron's titles down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.
Hey, Mobs, that sounds wavy.